Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics. Welcome back. And today we're just going to do some drawing inside of Manga Studio, Clip Studio Paint. So let me go ahead and bring that program up. And I felt like we needed to do some sketching inside of here since I've been focusing on some of the other programs lately. And people were kind of asking in the last few streams, do you not really draw inside of Manga Studio? Clip Studio Paint, and I do a lot of drawing inside this program. I just sometimes feel like the other programs allow me to draw a little bit more freely in a sense, but the drawing in this app is still, or program is still very, very well done. You can definitely draw whatever you need to in here. I don't necessarily feel like there's a brush lag. It just feels a little bit different in the responsiveness. So sometimes I'll go to the other programs to kind of feel like I'm working just a little bit more quickly. But one of the things I do like about sketching in this program is the ability to quickly blue line, and the layers are set up really well to work through a sketch as well. So I'll kind of demonstrate that. Hey, what's up everybody? Glad a few people have already chimed in. That's awesome. That was rather quickly. Yeah, so just doing my warm-up sketches for the day, get some things going here, and figured why not live stream it, Why not share it with the world? So if you guys got any questions, be sure to drop them in, and I'll try to check back with those as I'm sketching here. I'd like to get a little bit of this drawn in at first, and then get to where we can do some rendering. So we're always doing so much rough sketching. Sometimes I want to show some of the rendering techniques, because that's really kind of the fun part for me is rendering out the picture and even obviously completing the picture. It's also something I think I need to figure out how to do a series of live streams where we just basically work through an entire piece. So in the first live stream we do the rough sketch. Next live stream, maybe the clean up pencil lines, and so on and so forth until the piece is complete. GS Ward says, are you painting today? No, I didn't really plan on it. I was just going to do some drawing today. Even though I know I mentioned in the last live stream we need to get back on some paint work. But I've been a little bit spread thin here, so I thought about just sketching today. But if you got a particular question on painting, I can try to answer it for you. Trying to figure out what I want to do with this hand here. I've lately been thinking about I need to study hand poses further, because I'm always going to, it's real easy to want to always draw a fist, and it's like, obviously a fist is only one of many expressions that the hands can do, so I've got to get back to studying hand poses so I can add more expressiveness to the hands themselves. I'll just throw that in there for now. That doesn't look accurate, but so you guys got any questions here? Let me scroll down on the comments, see if you guys are asking anything. Seth puts, does drawing in a live stream affect your drawings, or do you get nervous? No, I mean I'm not nervous. I'm pretty. Yeah, I'm getting a little nervous. No, yeah, it's I mean definitely it's not the same as just drawing. I'll tell you, my best drawings come out when I'm just sitting there playing some music. Lately I've been playing epic music. It's so funny because I think that it's kind of cheesy in a way, but epic music makes me think about comics and superheroes and superhero movies. And if I play a superhero movie, I get too into the movie and then I think less about what I'm drawing. But you are right in the sense that I don't know that I actually get nervous or anything like that, but I become less focused on the art, so the art doesn't come out as good. But if I sit there and, jam out some music or something like that, I can really kind of get in the zone, and my drawings tend to flow out better and become better. So yeah, so I guess there's a little bit of mix in there. But yeah, I don't think I get absolutely nervous. I've done too many video recordings now where, when I'm up to like 400 and something videos just on YouTube. So it's like, I think I'm past the nervous part of it. But it doesn't mean I'm past the part where I can always get my very best work. So, still working on that. Let's see. Hi, Rob. General question about comics. Do you set aside time to practice drawing daily objects, cars, pets, furniture, etc., or do you reference them as needed in your comics? Yeah, that's a good question, Jason. So what happens there is they're not my strong suit. They're not the thing that I come up with out of my head as easily. So what I do there, I should be doing daily studies of them. But what ends up happening is if you did daily studies of every single thing, it's going to get tricky. It's going to get tricky to find time to study everything. You should study everything as much as possible. I always talk about studying your weak suits, finding things that are hardest for you and focusing on those, because then what happens, I think, is other things become easier. When it comes to things like furniture and scenes and things like that, what I've been doing lately is I'll block things out really quickly. So for instance, if I had to draw a couch, I'll start with this very ugly shape because it's easy. Like just the perspective L shape of a couch or something. And what I'll do there is, obviously that would be one pretty disgusting looking couch, is I'll think about what I know about a couch, how it bends and shifts and turns or whatever. And oftentimes that'll be pretty clunky as well. It still won't be as refined. And I'll take that usually as far as I can out of my own mind's eye. But then after a while, I'll say, all right, you know what a couch is looking like today? What are the designs? And I'll pull from reference. But I'll start here because I guess my thought process is the more I can try to work it out of my own mind, the more I'm strengthening that. But I won't spend too much time here if I know I'm just not getting it right. Then I'll pull from reference. And then when I pull from reference, I try to study the reference and still do my own thing. And then last but not least, if I can't get it to look good from reference and a few soft erases and redraws, I'm not going to spend an absorbent amount of time trying to get a couch right or trying to get a drawing of a puppy right or whatever. I'm going to pull from reference. And I'll tell you, even at last resort, and I know some people don't even use this as a last resort, if I have to, I'll trace it, especially if I'm running short on time. And I know it sounds bad. A lot of people probably think, oh man, you shouldn't trace or whatever. There's some artists that wholeheartedly believe you should trace a lot of things like people and faces and then add your own style with it. I listened to this rant from Kevin Smith and I think it was Neil Adams. And they go on and on about it. Or Neil Adams really just goes on about it. Kevin Smith is just kind of sitting there and laughing or whatever. But it was kind of great to listen to because he's like getting like really upbeat and irate about it and saying, you know what? You should trace. People should trace. There are a lot of great artists trace. And it kind of blew my mind really because I was like, wow. I know I'll trace as a study. Definitely study by tracing because, there's certain things you just kind of get a better idea of it. Like the other day I was studying an arm pose and I kept struggling doing this arm pose like this and trying to get it right. And it just wasn't looking right with the overlap effect that I'll do and try to get the hand coming out and the forearm here and the bicep here, whatever. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to take a picture and study it. And I just took the picture and studied it and I started seeing the shape of the shoulder does this kind of weird thing from that perspective, and there was almost no bicep here. It went right to the forearm. And then, you know, it's going to be tough to explain this without having the picture in front of me. But what I'm saying is it was just showing me how off, that's pretty bad, how off visually I was to where things were lining up and where they were overlapping. So tracing photos can show you that really quickly and teach you a lot. And yeah, it's amazing how many old school artists did it. So when you study like Renaissance artists and a lot of the great artists of old, a lot of them traced, a lot of them made these crude projectors. He talks about that in the clip as well. I thought that was pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, I can try to scribble out a fight scene, that 1-against-5 thing. I mean, see what I can come up with for you. And then what's the next comment? Tracing that old Lord of the Rings animated movie. Oh, tracing like that old Lord of the Rings animated movie. Yeah, I haven't seen that. I don't know, and that could be a filter, but I don't know. Maybe they did trace it. I haven't seen it. But what I guess I'm getting at is that it just teaches you a lot that you don't get from drawing out of your mind all the time. Like one of the things that he said that I thought was funny. He goes, you know the problem with drawing out of your head all the time? It's the same crap. He goes, it's the same crap that was in your head last week. It'll be the same crap that was in your head next week. He just really goes off on a tangent, not a tangent, but he gets really into it, you know, and it was pretty funny to watch. And not to mention, you're talking about a guy that's drawn every major title, done all the big books, all the big stuff. He's a you know, he's a pinnacle in the comic industry. So for him to say that carries a lot of weight. You know, if I say it, it's like people are like, oh yeah, whatever, you know, you're just some YouTube guy or whatever. But this guy is, you know, he's big time in the industry. So that was kind of neat to hear from him. But you know, like I said, I do try to draw as much out of my head as possible, just to feel like I'm strengthening my mind's eye for what I'm trying to do. Yeah, no problem, Jason. Appreciate the question. And rotoscope animation, Scott says, and I'm not familiar with that. Can you elaborate? What is rotoscope animation? Is that the effect you're describing with that whole Lord of the Rings thing? Alright, so let's see if we can do that 1-against-5 thing. I've been wanting to do a full group shot. I actually started one the other night. I've got about 3 characters roughed in. I'm going to do a full group shot, I think, of all the Marvel characters. At least try to anyways. They get so time consuming that I got to make sure I don't fall off of it. But I think I'm just going to keep adding to it here and there and try to do that, because I always like those huge group shots, you know. And I'm more the type of artist where I do a lot of singular characters or 1 and 2 type characters, but there's a lot that you learn about doing those multiple characters. So I don't know, I'll just rough this in. Actually, I'm going to start really small. I'm going to rough this in and get a concept going first. So I'll picture, hopefully this doesn't come out horrible, but I'll picture that it's maybe somebody like the Hulk fighting, and they're all kind of attacking the Hulk because he's going nuts or something. Just say it's something like that. So I usually start off really, really small and really thumbnail so that I can see it from a distance and get an idea in place. Make all the mistakes here if I can. I'll say it's a fist up here, forearm, bicep, whatever. Legs, usually got these short, stumpy, big muscular legs. All upper body, or at least that's the way I see them. Huge hands. Okay, so we'll say that's the Hulk, as rough as that is. And we'll say that everybody's kind of charging and attacking at him. You know, you'd probably have, I don't know, we'll say you'll have Thor the closest, because he's the strong. And the only reason I'm picking characters, I'm not going to detail these, but I like to have a concept in mind as I'm even thumbnailing like this. If not, I feel like you're just kind of guessing, and you could ultimately draw or come up with anything, and that's not a bad thing. I guess maybe you could hit the nail on the head, but or come close, but you're not going to come up with something exact, I think, unless you really have a concept of what you're putting down. That's why it works out so well when you're working on a script to a book, because you at least got that script to keep going back to give you a visual guide, mental guide, or whatever. So he's like got his hammer back here, getting ready to swing it, and some of the cape here. Alright, let me read a couple of these comments really fast here. It's drawing over the film for the most part. Got it. Okay. They did it in the old heavy metal animated movie. Yeah, fantastic. That's like one of my old school faves right there. That was groundbreaking. So, and you could tell with the motion of it. You ever saw a Scanner Darkly? Nope, haven't. And He-Man? Yeah, I guess I could see that motion in He-Man too, that fluid kind of motion that they do to the characters. One more question, if you don't mind. At what point in practicing fundamentals would you tell a new artist to attempt a finished piece, and what type of piece would you recommend to try? So that's by Jason. Jason, it's really, you should finish pieces even in the start. Don't wait to be some great artist to finish your work. Your finished work, the reason you finish pieces isn't because they're going to come out miraculous, okay? So you don't wait for your sketches to get so good, and you don't wait for your anatomy to get so good, or whatever you're focused on thinking needs to be better, to do a finished piece. The reason you do a finished piece is because you're teaching yourself, you're honing your ability to commit to the piece until it's done. And that becomes hard to do even later in your career. So don't start any bad habits now. Continually finish pieces, because that's what you're honing that ability to stick with something and get it done. Don't wait to get good enough, is what I'm saying. So you should finish pieces now. And as far as what type of piece to finish, I think that you should probably start most with what inspires you, because that lends you to finish your work. And then over time, you have to even practice finishing pieces that necessarily don't inspire you, I want to say. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you're going to get jobs where you're not even into the job, and it's like, it's a job, and someone's going to ask you to draw or paint something or whatever. So you need to be aware that honing that ability to stick with something is very important, because as a professional, you'll be asked to draw things that you're not particularly excited about. I do storyboards for TV, and not all of them are fun and great, and some of them I'm just kind of looking at and going, what? Really? Some commercials are stupid. I'm sorry. It's like, I shouldn't say that. Hopefully my agent isn't listening, but at the same time, it's just the way it is. It's the nature of being a professional illustrator. People are going to ask you to do things, and they're not going to be, they're not always going to get to draw Spider-Man and the Hulk or whoever. So you should practice that now even. Just, like I said, to be ready for when you are working professional and that happens, you gotta make yourself kind of get excited. You gotta stay inspired some way, and you gotta try to produce the best piece that you can. When you draw dynamic poses, do you pretty much know how you want the pose to be, or do you find out as you draw? A little bit of both. Like the reason I'm thumbnailing, I guess I could increase this a little bit. It's probably hard for you guys to see. The reason why I'm thumbnailing like this is because I'm not exactly sure the way I want the pose to go. And a lot of times I'll have this idea in my mind as I'm drawing the pose, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work to the next 3 stages of the art. So I don't know if you guys can tell, as bad as this is supposed to be Captain America whipping his shield at the Hulk and bouncing it off his head. So these are just little ideas that I'm throwing in there. And you can see I'm doing them very crudely. One arm's kind of coming out this way. He's kind of leaned over in the pose. You know, drawing a direction of a face is as simple as a cross section on the face. So you work out all these details here. So I've got a glimpse of an idea in there as far as what I'm thinking as I'm doing this, but it doesn't necessarily mean this is going to work. Like one of the things I'm noticing right now, even in this thumbnail, all the characters are too upright, which is boring. You know, so I need a character flying over and throwing a kick, or somebody up in the air, like maybe, you know, it'd be Iron Man, I guess, up here. And here's his shoulders. Well, I guess if his shoulders were here, then his arms would come out this way and connect here. Usually his hands are up because he's got those little blasters in his palms. If his body's leaned over here, I could do this again where he's sitting straight up and down. But now again, I've repeated this process of a bunch of boring, static kind of poses. So what I would probably do to add some perspective here is I would start to try to draw the body going back into space. Now I can think perspectively like this, you know, perspective lines. That's visually what I'm thinking without drawing those in. But the other way is to stack the objects. So you know, always talk about head, torso, pelvic. You know, I mean, obviously there's a lot more to the body than that, but that's the parts I think about, and then I stack them that way. So I'll stack the upper torso here. I'll put the pelvic back here. It's going to get hidden a lot. And then from there, I just attach the legs, which will be little lines for now. Maybe the legs are, you know, they bend back a little bit here. That's why you see the calf muscle up there. And that's kind of how I work through it. And I'm not saying that's the only way, that's the right way or whatever. It's just a way, and that's just a way that I do it. So, but I try to have as much visually pictured as I go into the pose, but I don't always. You know, I just kind of mix it up. Yeah, I can't control the volume. Sorry about that. Anybody else having problems with the volume on your end? Very helpful and motivating to hear you talk about finishing pieces. By far one of the things that I struggle with the most. Yeah, we all do. I mean, there's, you know, the difference is when you're really inspired to do a piece, you kind of just can't stop working on it. And that's the difference, you know. So that's one of the reasons why I talk about on the channel here, to try to do as much work that you truly love, because it shows in your work. You complete work because of it. It's better on your mind, your body, everything. It's just the way art really should be. But sometimes we have to take those jobs to make a living, and that's just, you know, that's life. You know, unfortunately, that's the way it is. I think some people get truly lucky, and they just get to immediately draw what they want, and they're passionate about, and it makes it a lot easier for them to complete work. That's why I do so much fan art, is because I really love superhero art. So I don't make money doing that. I mean, I kind of do in a sense where if people buy my videos or they go to my Gumroad or whatever, but I don't really make a living drawing superhero art. But I'm going to do it because I love to do it. I'm just going to do it until I'm in a box somewhere in the earth, which sounds really depressing. Sorry. But yeah, you know, but I do it because I love it, so I'm always going to do it. Okay, so a couple people say they can hear me fine, so try to up your volume. If you're running off smaller speakers, that can be an issue. I got the mic right up to my face, and I don't want to yell, and if I turn the gain up too much, it seems to distort. Okay, so back to this. So we got a few of these characters. You know, we'll do the blast from him. So they're just all it's kind of messed up. I got them all just beating the crap out of Hulk, but he can take it. And then we got to get some of the female characters. We could do Scarlet Witch. And again, I don't know why I keep saying the Avengers. It really shouldn't be about them, but it gives me that idea. So I was able to, you know, put the hammer here. You know, you do the electricity coming off, or lightning, I should say. You know. And I think in comparison, Hulk needs to be bigger. So this is one of the nice things about digital, obviously. But if you're drawing traditionally, you just use your light table, and you know, you can just do that. You can tilt them. You know, a lot of what's really good to add dynamics to the scene is continually be tilting and moving the things around, especially in this stage, because you can really build that drama up to the scene and the dynamics of the scene. So a really good way, or a really easy way to make things look boring is just having everything upright and static, static poses. Okay, so now let's try, how can we introduce one of the other characters? And how many is this? 4? Yeah, see, and this is the other thing, what always trips me up about these types of scenes is I keep wanting to add these characters in full body, right? And if you ever notice, like when you do these, or you see these scenes, almost nobody is in full body. So let me establish a frame, because if not, I'm just working on a blank space here. So I'll just draw a frame right about here. Go ahead and blue line that so it's not so in the way of everything. And so what you have to start thinking about is, like, characters that are behind characters. It's, for one, it creates a lot more depth in the shot anyways. Makes your drawing process easier to accomplish. Just a good thing to do. So maybe she's kind of leaned over this way. We'll say this is, I don't know, Scarlet Witch or somebody. Just got an arm down like this. Leaned over, you got her hip up here or something. Her leg down here. So with a lot of these complex scenes, they'll do that where, there's a lot of overlap going on, and it builds depth. It makes things look a lot more impressive. If everybody's full body, it just doesn't look right. It wouldn't look, it wouldn't be that way in a real scene. Obviously this isn't a real scene, it's comics, but you wouldn't see everybody full body. So you got to make sure to do a lot of that overlap and hidden characters. You could do a character up close right here, which is going to, again, add depth to the scene. I don't know what she's doing over here, but, this is another good trick to add depth, is add that one up close character. You could have the character mainly filled in too, because generally when things are up close like that, they're darker. It's more in painting, but that's kind of the way it works. You could have rubble and debris blocking some of the legs and stuff. You'll see that almost every time. And it's funny, I think a lot of people say, well, that's just because they don't like drawing legs, but it's really not. A lot of the big pros do it because it gives a feeling of depth to the scene. And again, that layering effect that you want. So then as I get enough people in there, I'd add a few more, maybe Vision's back here, and I think he usually flies more up and down, so we'll say that he's just kind of floating back here, legs together, hands to his side. I know, not hands to his side, that looks a little too boring. About legs to the side like this, and it just hands out. And it'd probably look more interesting to have him leaned over more. I don't know, that beam from his head or something. And billowing cape, that's always adds more interesting look. So I try to get as much information in this rough thumbnail as I can, and then from here it's like, okay, how do I clean it up? And I would also think about it in terms of, I'm going to put the most detail in the middle where the focal point is, and I'm going to spend the most time there. And I also want to try to block in big shapes of shadows to save time and to push certain things forward and back. So I don't think I'll have time to refine this whole thing or anything like that, but I'll what layer am I on here? Okay, I'll blue line all of it and add a layer over top, and show you how I'd start to try to clean it up. And this is the part where, like I said, sometimes it works in a thumbnail, but then it doesn't work in even the rough stage. So I try to keep this still rough, so that I'm not against making big changes. So I don't want to sit here and go right to cleaning it up, and then I settle on things that just don't look right. So I'll take this and I'll, just kind of roughing in some anatomy and figuring things out. But I might spot some pretty big flaws where I'm like, oh wait, this isn't going to work, and I got to go back and change it. And that's where staging the work is so important. All right, looking at a couple of the comments here, somebody's asking me to paint. I'm probably not going to paint just because I've already started this direction here, but I will paint in the next one. So sorry for that. And then the other one is, do you stay up to date with all the major comics? No, not even close. I wish I did, but I spend so much time creating in the studio and doing the stuff that I do. I really don't even have time to read a lot of the comics, which I'm trying to get back to it because they're great. They're great for getting better as an artist and obviously knowing what's going on and what's hot in the industry and things like that. But yeah, I just don't have the time, unfortunately, right now. So I'll pick up a few here and there, my favorite artists, things like that. But I don't read as much of the storylines as I need to and stay up to date with that. So I was just trying to rough out a basic idea, keep it going, and see if I can. His eyes would probably be up higher if he's screaming. No one has the money to do that. That's funny. And then Tabi says, do you think if someone is teaching you to draw, you're getting the instructor style and not your own natural style that comes from you? Yeah, I don't know that that's the best way to think about it. I mean, I get what you're saying there, and I guess there's an idea that could happen, like you're going to adopt too much their style. But I think that you learn so much by studying, either whether it be an instructor, whether it be even looking at other artists' work and doing studies from it, just so you can kind of see the decisions they make. I think that's really important because I think it goes back to that thing I was mentioning earlier that Neil Adams was saying, is that if you just only focus on what's in your head, you're going to always kind of do the same things. Like, for instance, we all learn from life. We all study from life. So, that's not cheating. That's not, if anything, that's the best thing you could do because you need to see the way things actually work. So by getting information from an instructor that's more knowledgeable, that's done it longer, that's all just going to give you a better leg up into what you're facing. So no, I would say that it's very important to study from instructors, from other artists, and not feel that that's going to hinder you. You're still going to make your own style choices. You're still going to do things and then go, you know what I think would look cool is here and this instead of this. That's just you being a person and being an individual. You'll work that in naturally. I would say it's more important to understand why a professional makes the choices they do. What did they learn that you weren't understanding? How are they accomplishing it? And learn from that process. So don't, and that's my opinion. I'm sure there's lots of ways to kind of interpret what you just said there and how to approach that, but that's what I would say. Okay, and then we got, how did you start out drawing as a digital artist? Did you first do any traditional drawing, or did you just digital from the start? No, I started as a traditional artist. Years ago. I recently, well, I shouldn't say recent. I've been a digital artist for probably 15 years now, in a sense, but not fully digital. I went fully digital probably in the past 5 years, and I don't even mean fully digital. I still draw traditionally as much as possible, but digital just is quicker for me, and it's quicker in the sense of where, as an instructor, me sharing my information and work, it makes so much more sense. And as a storyboard artist, that's it's all digital. It's such a fast-paced industry that there's no way you could work. I don't think anybody does it traditionally anymore because of scan times and working online with all these other people. It just makes a lot more sense to do it all digitally. Yeah, and GS Ward's got a good one. Life mimics art, art mimics life, for sure. That cape in there. I don't know why I cannot remember what his helmet looks like, or I could just do it the movie version where he's just got hair flowing all over the place. And his hammer, which I can never remember the name, so I'll just say his hammer. But yeah, so, and this is just how I work through it. And it may not work out. It may not, I may look at it and I go, this is heading in the wrong direction. I need to change some poses. But I think that if you do it in this way where you thumbnail it and then you slowly clean it up and you don't go to right refinement. Don't sit there and go, well, this is a good pose. I'm just going to totally draw to a refined state. Maybe as you get, years and years of practice under your belt, you'll go right to doing that. But I think that, again, by staging the work, you just can spot flaws and you can fix flaws without wasting a tremendous amount of time. So that's the main reason I do it this way. I just turn his head right towards. Oh, looks like he's looking right at him. Yeah, I think almost everybody should do traditional art first, and I also don't think that one really necessarily replaces the other. Like I said, because of the one industry that I work within, I have to do it there. But I don't by any means think that it should replace me ever doing traditional. I just did a traditional piece of Batman and sent it out as a fan art piece this week. So, I still do traditional. I just don't do as much of it. And when I go to the comic conventions, I do all traditional because I do show sketches, and that's obviously all traditional. And but I've even done some fan art commissions all digital now, so it's just crazy. It is kind of changing, but I don't think it replaces it. Like there's that certain collectivity that you get from having a piece of art when it's done, and you can hang it on the wall and say that's the original. That's I don't ever see that going away. I know that it's definitely changing, and there won't be as much of it, but that's going to in turn make the the collectivity of it go up. So in turn, we'll keep it alive, and it'll just go back and forth. I think that comics in general should work that way. I don't think they should ever quit printing comics. Maybe they won't be as many, but then that will also make them more collectible. Even if you did everything traditionally, you would still probably want to scan it and color it digitally, as far as comics go anyway. Yeah, so digital color, I mean, it's pretty hard to beat that. For all the effects that you can do and all the time-saving ability of digital color, overall cleanliness. That's one of the things that led me to start inking digitally. And there's some, amazing inkers. The best inking is still done traditionally by far, in my opinion. But the ability to like draw it and ink it digitally, and it to be so clean and so ready to just ship, is hard to beat. And not to mention, I love the crow quill and I love brushes and all that, but they're messy, and I can't just go. I can't just grab all my inks and head out somewhere and go do something. I'm getting to where I can ink pretty decent on the iPad Pro now, so I'm feeling like I'll be able to ink on the go, which I would have never been able to do. So there's just certain things where it makes it, more beneficial. Yeah, when I work traditionally, it's all Bristol board. Bristol board. My favorite is Blue Line, which I got to check. I haven't ordered in a while. I still got a bunch from when I was. I used to get it from my publisher. Like I would draw a book and he'd give me like stacks of it. So I got some of that stuff left over. I tried buying the stuff that you get from Michael's, at least around me, had it, and it's a Bristol board. Comic paper or whatever. So I think it says comic manga paper or whatever. But I realized that the tooth on it, or the drawing experience, is totally different. Like for some reason the Blue Line stuff I got is awesome, and the other stuff is like so. So it's still doable. It's still a good paper, but not as good as the Blue Line Bristol board that I got. That stuff's awesome. Yeah, so hopefully you guys can see how this is coming together. And then what ends up happening, where's this line? This line's up top. Just merge all these together since these are all rough thumbnails anyways. And then what I'll do is I'll start to slowly tone this one back, and then I'll work on another layer over top. And the next layer I'd probably do shapes of shadows, but I'd also fix some things like, poses that don't seem as interesting. But before I get too much further, because I don't think it's bad, but it needs a little bit more. Another good thing is, obviously, like, you get the perspective in there, and you get some buildings, you figure out where they're at, so you get some of that in there. So that adds another level of composition and dynamics to it. But you make sure not to over detail stuff back there as well. You want to keep these, like, use your shapes and shadows again and just kind of block some stuff in. But I would say start with all your detail in the foreground and then work your way back. And the next layer, getting in some shapes and shadows to see what you don't have to detail. Because there's a lot of ways you can save yourself time by blocking in shadows, and that's also how you push things forward and back. So if I want Hulk to stand out more, I'm going to have some nice heavy shadows around his legs and back here to make him kind of pop out. Oh, cool. So JS Ward saying I like to use watercolor paper. Likes the way it absorbs the ink, and then when you finish, you can watercolor it. Yeah, I've never, it's pretty sad. I've never even done watercolor. I need to. I hate to say that I haven't done anything when it comes to an art process, so I need to try that out. I didn't do a whole lot of like regular painting. Like all my first painting, all my paintings thus far has been digital. The only thing, well, I shouldn't say that. The only thing that I did paint is I did paint murals for a while there. I did a few pretty cool murals, and then but I did those all with like big brushes and dab effects and filling things in, and then any kind of refinement I did with an airbrush. So, and I did airbrush a lot of shirts and a couple motorcycles and things like that. So I guess I have done some painting, but when I think of like canvas painting or traditional painting, I haven't done any of that really. And I did airbrush flames on a hearse one year. That was pretty fun. It was actually for a Halloween kind of thing. We did this crazy looking hearse that had flames on it, and they did some people came through and did some a big Frankenstein head out of the top. It was pretty wicked. Bring one leg down like this. I see any more questions? No, you guys are pretty silent over there? Okay. Can I share something about body language and storytelling? Yeah, so let me see. Yeah, as far as body language, to me, when it comes to comics, is like, you just want to do a lot of like the lean over type effects. Like for instance, as I'm looking at this, one of the things that I feel like could be better is Thor's stance and coming through. Um, maybe I tilt the arm back this way. One of the things that I've been wanting to study more lately, and I'll be doing a lot more of it in my next course on how to improve figure drawing, is I'm going to study a lot more of the twist of the body, because there's a lot of expression that comes there, and it's a very easy part to get wrong. And a big part of that is lots of gesture drawing. You should do figure drawing and study the body and quick gesture studies, because when you draw really quickly from the body, you're forced to look at things like weight disbursement, things like the way the body contorts, and balance, things like that. So all those things are very important, because it's real easy to want to do like what I just did here with this guy, just straight up and down, arms out. Things like that are easy to get in the habit of doing, because you've drawn them so many times, or at least I have, or whatever, to where it's easy to kind of just do that again and again, and that's where you got to break out of that. And to do that, you want to draw a lot of dynamic poses. You want to really study those. You want to break them down, and you want to get a lot of foreshortening going on in there. I guess the best way is just a lot of figure drawing. And then as far as storytelling goes, storytelling is there's a lot to that. I mean, there's like like not always just drawing. For instance, let me just sketch something down here to kind of illustrate one idea. Like if you're drawing somebody talking into camera, right, and they're sitting there, you could easily just do this. They're talking into camera, and you could even do some action lines, because it's an intense scene that they're saying, right? And that's easy. That's what a lot of people would do. You could step that up a notch, and you could tilt the person. So there's almost nothing different other than you've tilted the person, and it added just a tiny bit more drama. not much, but just a bit. Then you could take that and you could tilt the person, but you could bring the camera in real close and really focus on the expression of their eyes lighting up or their mouth being open. And they're ultimately all the same shot, you know, but this one has a bit more intensity to it or drama than this first one. This first one just looks like a portrait or something. So that, you know, that's obviously one very basic concept of storytelling, but that's kind of how I look at it. Like, so if you can keep breaking down scenes and figuring out each way how you'd make them more dynamic, it becomes a lot easier to tell a good story. And then it just goes on and on and on with that. One thing that you can study that I think is really good to know for storytelling for comics, there's a thing called 22 panels that work by, I think it's Wally Woods. So if you look that up and study those and then practice those and even print them out and stick them by your art table, it's a really good thing to do because he did it as a way to draw quicker. I thought it was some really great information, and at least the articles I read. And he just talks about 22 quick panels that really work and why they work. Or I don't know if he gets into why they work, but some people do in the articles. And yeah, it's really great stuff. So for storytelling, I definitely recommend you check that out. You know, and the other thing is too, like, all right, for instance, like this, the hot's for Hulk, so she doesn't want to hurt him or something. But so she's sitting right here, and there's this really boring, just kind of back of head shot. And as simple as it is, just adding that arm coming up and doing some kind of expressive hand. And I'm not going to probably do the greatest hand here because hands suck. But you know, you do this expressive hand, like, no, wait, don't hurt him or something, right? And so our hand's up here. So simple as that is, doing stuff like that makes a big difference. You know, it's a really ugly hand. But that's where I would look at reference and, you know, get me a nice little hand in there. But little things like that help out a lot to storytelling. So whenever you got just that basic shot, just a person sitting there, get that hand expression in there, and then obviously you combine that with foreshortening. I can't do it here because I could draw a very little hand to show the depth from her to the hand, but if she was turned around, I could do a really cool foreshortened hand, and I could really push that depth of that scene a lot more. All right, let's see what you guys are saying here. Let's see, not sure if you answered this, but my video blanked out. But I'm an aspiring storyboard artist myself, and I'm not sure where to start. Any ideas on how to get in that kind of industry? So yeah, with that, it's going to be, let me read a couple of these because they're moving by kind of quick. Okay, so with that, the best thing with any of these markets and getting into them is establishing relationships. You know, like you always hear people say, it's all on who you know, and that's a big part of it. And unfortunately, that's probably the biggest. But the thing that you got to do first is you have to build up a portfolio. You have to showcase that portfolio. You have to get feedback from people, and you have to grow from that feedback. So that's the biggest thing, the most important thing. Now, once you feel that your portfolio is really strong and, you know, you got everybody telling you your stuff's amazing and you feel pretty confident about your work, then that's when you reach out to agents. There's agencies out there. So what you're going to look for when it comes to storyboards is you're going to look for artist reps and agencies. One of the, you know, the one that I work with that's one of the big ones or whatever is Famous Frames out of LA and New York. And so what you would do there is you'd submit your work there. Now, I'm gonna be honest, a lot of them are going to be really tough, and they're not just going to immediately say, yeah, your stuff looks great. I've been drawing for a long time, and I submitted to them for a few years and never even got so much as a hey, good job type thing. But then over time and persistence, eventually was able to start getting jobs or gigs or whatever you want to call them. So the main thing is that you keep pushing that stuff out there. You keep showing them what you can do. You show by resilience and improvement that you're not going nowhere. Because they get a lot of people, I imagine, that just say, hey, I can draw really well, check this out. And then that doesn't mean enough. That doesn't mean that if they were to put their necks on the line and send you a big job, that you would complete that job. And be aware that deadlines and storyboards are way worse than comics. There's not even a comparison. Like comics, you got a full month to do a book. It's if it's a very detailed book, then yeah, there's way more work that could go into a comic. But if you're talking deadlines and accountability, storyboards are way worse, because you'll sometimes get a job where you got to knock out 20 frames in a couple days. Like this would be a frame, just so you know. But we're talking, some of these got to be inked color, well, not inked per se, but colored frames. Some are just pencil. So you got to figure out if you're going to be a shooting board artist or color comp artist, or what your goal is. And then you got to be aware of those deadlines. You got to be aware of the possibility that you might have to work overnight to knock something out, and all these things. But it all starts with your portfolio. It all starts with you sending in work and getting feedback from that portfolio. Another big company in the industry is Storyboards Inc. They're out of, I think they got a New York and LA office as well. So you just have to send your work to these guys and see what happens. And I think they have sections on their site for sending it out. And keep in mind, those are two of the bigger companies. You might have to start with a smaller company to get started. So just Google it. You'll see lots of companies. You're going to Google something like commercial advertising, animatics, because you're making storyboards for animatics is what you're doing. And then they animate that work that you send them to make an animatic. So just so you're aware of what that's all about, or the short, skinny answer of it. Oh, and somebody put digging this scene. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, like I said, I need to do more of these. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get a visual guide for blocking in some shapes of shadows, so that I can see where I can kind of bump up the intensity of the scene. And again, you don't want to just sit here and put lines all over the whole thing. You got to have some good sized shadows to push some of these forms around. Yeah, you're welcome. So hopefully that answered your question on that. I really don't know how else best to answer that. I'm still a little bit of a novice in that industry. I've only been doing storyboards for 4 years, 3-4 years. So it's not like some old pro in that. I've actually been doing comics longer, but one of the things that I had to reason I got into that is because I had a harder time figuring out a way to make money with comics. And the funny thing is, when you get in the industry, you'll see there's actually a bunch of comic artists that do it. So some of them do both, which I wasn't aware of until I got into it. I thought that was pretty crazy. I'm like looking at work and portfolio samples. I'm like, wait a second, this guy draws Iron Man, or whatever. And it's like, so some of them will bounce back and forth, because even as a comic artist, people need to be aware that when you get into the industry, it's not just getting that first job. It's getting that first job, then that next job, then that next job, and you got to stay viable in that market. You're never just hired and that's it. Some people might get that lucky, but it's a select few. You have to continually get the next title. If you notice, a lot of those comic guys don't stay on the same title for very long unless they're the upper echelon people. So That's one of the reasons why I just do my own book, because I'm like, oh, it sounds so freaking scary. I mean, I would love to do it, but I thought, you know what, at least it's my own book. If I can ever get that off the ground, it'll just be, I'll just be producing my own work, and maybe I won't make as much or whatever, but I'll be able to continually just work on that title and grow it, and in essence. So yeah, then what I'll do here is just kind of pick apart the scene and keep detailing it. Still think I need to get a lot more shadows in here, but and then also this is where I would actually pick some of the reference for the suits, because as much as I watch things like Avengers and love the movies, the comics, all that, I still don't know all the suits. It's horrible. Like Hulk's easy, just some ripped up pants and maybe a tore up wife beater. You ever see Hulk in a wife beater? There we go. But he's easy. But the rest of me, I actually have to look at reference to know exactly what it looks like. Hey, what's up, Keeman? Good to have you here. Yeah, so let me know if you guys have any questions. We're coming up on the hour mark, so I'm gonna go ahead and close this one up. And, I can even try to refine this more in a future video or something. Or I think the next one we'll do is digital painting, since a few people have already asked about that. Yeah, thanks, Chief Antor. I appreciate that. I mean, it's just a rough sketch, but hopefully it gives you the idea. Another neat thing, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, if you use Clip Studio, just a quick tip. Say you start getting a few layer intensive things and you want to make changes, but you don't necessarily want to get rid of your background there. You can select all those layers and then grab something from each one of those layers. Like I want to make Hulk even a bit bigger. So like I said, I'll continually try to keep modifying them here. And actually I want to get rid of I don't want to grab the border there. So I'll hold Alt, deselect there. But yeah, you can grab all that stuff. So if you notice, it's going to grab the blue in the background and the lines in the foreground because I have them all selected here. So one of the neat things that this program does that a lot of them don't do. This is Manga Studio Clip Studio Paint. It's pretty much predominantly the one that I use for comic illustration. Like my Blackstone comic is all done in this program. And with that, I'll get the shameless plug out of the way. If you guys follow me on Gumroad, and check out my course content or custom brushes, I've got custom brushes for this program and others. That helps me continue what I do here, so there'll be links in the description box below. So yeah, so I appreciate everybody tuning in and watching this. Hopefully this is giving you a few ideas as to how you can work out your scenes and things like that. And yeah, it's always fun. So as always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and I will talk to you soon.